Welcome to another episode of Nobody Asked Us with Des and Kara, presented by TCS. We are, oh, I got an applause for that. All right. We're feeling good. We are just less than 3 weeks out for the Olympic trials. If you're watching, you'll see a very special person on Des's shoulder. You just blocked it. There. And yeah, so Des is in Orlando. She'll tell us a little bit about that. But Des, we're going to talk about the Houston Marathon because it was yesterday, but you got from Houston to Florida, right?
I did. I made it. This is like just a crazy travel experience. Not great for training, not great for morale. Picked up a little cold, but we got from Traverse City to Detroit in a day. Spent a night at the Detroit Wingate. Not quite a Hojo, but not quite a Westin. Somewhere in the middle. Better than an airport floor. And then went from Detroit to Houston. Got in the evening, called the race first thing in the morning, got a little shakeout run in, got on a plane in Houston, went to Atlanta, went from Atlanta to Orlando, watched the Lions game in the airport, took an Uber to this fancy Mickey Mouse resort. Now we're in Reunion, a nice little place down here. We used to come down here quite a bit with the Hansons. I feel like their team's training nearby, and everyone's coming into town. Everyone's into Florida, and I just literally just finished a run, took a shower, set up all the equipment. My mic didn't work, so it's been crazy. But I will say we ran pretty late in the morning, and it's thick. It's thick. The humidity is what people need to be preparing for.
And that's something you can get prepared for in, I don't know, I don't remember what the protocol is, but less than a couple weeks, right?
Like 10 days.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
think.
but more
3 weeks.
important, as a woman who lives in Michigan, how are you feeling about that football game last night?
So exciting. So awesome. Like the matchup is like storybook stuff. Okay, Monday you have U of M winning in Houston. Awesome for the university. I don't particularly like University of Michigan, don't particularly love the program, but as a Michigander, I consider myself now, lived there for a long time. Awesome Monday. Come back on the weekend. Stafford versus Goff. I mean, in Detroit, it was so loud in there, super jealous. I actually got to Florida and I have this little cold. You'll notice it's kind of lingering. And I was like, maybe we should just forget about the trials. We could get tickets to the game this weekend, go back, watch that, prioritize, and then just regroup for Boston. But the tickets are really expensive, so I'll probably just do the trials.
Well, nice. Well, I never watch football, but I saw the end of that last night. And I have a person that I used to be really close with that I'm not with anymore, but he's from Michigan. He's from Detroit. So I had to text him last night and say, congratulations, wishes come true. And I thought of you as well.
Yeah, it was
Okay,
exciting.
so that's good for you. All right, let's talk Houston because you were back in the booth.
I was.
Was it awesome? Was it fun to be back in the booth, or were you like, "Ooh, I feel rusty," or you're like, "Yeah, no, I'm good." I mean, you were on the lead vehicle car at the New York
Mhm.
City Marathon and absolutely crushed it. Like you were so good there and flawless and really like could tell things that you can't see when you're not right there and when you don't know the women the way you know them. So it's not like
Yeah.
you're like super super rusty, but being in the booth is a little different. How was it for you?
It was great. I love calling marathons. I feel like they're so much easier than track. Like I'm just familiar with it. I know the players. I know like just the body language, all of that stuff. So much. I haven't done track in forever, and even when I was on the track, I wasn't at the level where I was like running against the athletes that I'm, now in the booth like talking about. So it's different. It's a step removed. But the marathon's so fun, and to be honest, like Houston 3 weeks out. Like I had a big workout on the schedule. That was kind of the priority. I was like, I don't know if I should do it. But the last couple of years, the organization's really made an effort to make the broadcast better. Like they're trying so hard and they're asking for feedback and they're bringing people in and they're like, what more can we do? And I'll like sit down afterwards and write them, kind of pros and cons, like 3 ups, 3 downs or whatever. And they want it to be really good. And I don't know if I'm the person to make that happen, but I feel like I've done it a couple years now in a row. So the consistency was important and like that they value it so much. Like I was sitting at the Wingate in Detroit and I was like, I don't have to go. Like I could go straight to Florida. This would be so much better for my training. But I know it means a lot to them. So I was like, yeah, I want to go and try to help this broadcast, improve in any way that they can. And they're really into it. So that was cool. And I think they'll continue to get better because they do, like, they understand the importance of it. They know they're bringing in these great fields and they need to be showcased, the best way possible. But they're always going to contend with things like, okay, you have to get the, interview with the mayor on, or
Mhm.
you have to do the, like scenery, like high landmarks of the course or whatever. So it's fun to be there. I love that crew and I love what the team there is trying to do in terms of just like keep pushing it forward and make that a broadcast that people are excited about.
So can I tell you something funny?
Always. No,
Years
I hate
ago no, years ago, I worked on that broadcast twice, and everyone was so nice, but it was so nerve-wracking, and I felt like I didn't know anyone's name, and I definitely didn't prepare the way I would now or anything, and I just that was what made me decide TV isn't for me. And then I wasn't meant to be a broadcaster, and it had
yeah,
nothing to do with anyone there. I was just like, "Yeah, I can't do this." And so when NBC, I don't know what years I did it, but it was a long time ago. And when NBC reached out, I told them, "No, I've tried it. I don't like it." And then yeah, anyway, she convinced me to have a conversation with her, and then she convinced me to just like do an audition just to see, and I ended up having more fun. But it's funny, I think the reason why I had more fun was I like track because it's quick and it's easy and there's only so many players, whereas in the marathon, there's so many players and there's
yeah.
so much time to fill. And so basically what I'm getting at is you and I need to broadcast together. And I know we say this over and over and over again, but the things that I'm nervous about or I have weaknesses, that's where you have strengths. And I think we could do a really cool job together because you just do a great job and you know the marathon better than I ever did. And I mean, I love it and I'm obsessed with it and I watch it, but you just like get it better than I ever really got it. And I think it could be really fun. But I thought you did
I
great.
definitely, I think our strengths and weaknesses would complement, like we'd fill in for each other really, really well. And I think that that's something that even this year, and this is why I was like, I have to do Houston because we have to like keep the foot in the door here. Cause I
Yeah,
think that
yeah.
I really do feel like that might be the place where they're like, yeah, we just want to just try it. Like, let's be the
Yeah.
first person to like try this dynamic, like this, different broadcast and see if we can bring two people together. And so it's always like, maybe that'll be the place. And yeah, I think that they just want to make it great, and so they're open to new creative ways of doing things. And so yeah, well, we've got the foot in the door still, and next year you might have to take over, but hopefully it'll be both of us.
It'll be awesome. Okay, so let's talk about Houston because you were there and there were some really crazy performances, which leads to another conversation, which is just um, why do some people do a race 3 weeks out and some people don't? I think we should hit on that. But first, let's talk about what you saw there because there were some like really sensational efforts. There were some efforts that maybe left, wanting. Like, what was your take on the vibe of the day? I wasn't there. I was hearing it was really windy. I was hearing it was chilly, but also we saw some really fast times. So what was your feel on the day being there?
It was like, I mean, when you're sitting in the booth and you're just like kind of protected, it's just like, this is perfect. I'm chilly. I want an extra layer. But it's ideal for the runners, but you never really get the gauge on the wind. And then I went running, at like 11 o'clock probably. So the wind had picked, I'm assuming it had picked up. Like it didn't seem like it was that strong all day, but when I was out running, I was like, oh, this is breezy. This is going to be hard for a lot of the athletes that are still out there. But yeah, I mean, Houston, crazy shit always happens in Houston. Like it's always
Yeah.
so fast. And I think sometimes it can be like an outlier on your resume. Like you get this really perfect day and like there's just, you're going to Houston to run fast. And it's like, to me, I always want to see if an athlete can replicate that somewhere else. And then I'm like, okay, like they're getting better, or like this is actually who they are. Sometimes I look at Houston and I'm like, that's just Houston magic. Like do it again, like do it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not to take anything away, because if you
Right,
do
right.
it, you get it done. But as a competitor, I'm like, I don't believe that one just yet. and hopefully it's like false fitness where you're like, oh, like I ran, 104, so now I'm ready to run crazy time in the marathon, and then they go out crazy, and it's like, well, yeah, that Houston Magic isn't the same on Chicago or like Boston. So it can be like a little bit of false fitness, but I don't know. It was great. It was a fun day to watch. So many fast times, and then good races too. Like I thought both men's races were really just like competitive. You know.
Yeah, the half and the full. Let's
Mhm.
start with the women. So we talked on our podcast about Obiri being named to the Olympic team, which she hasn't yet
Mm.
in the marathon for Kenya. And we were saying, she's won New York, she's won Boston, she's going back to Boston again. They announced last week. What does she need to do to prove that she belongs on the Olympic team? And we had said, well, maybe she'd go try to run a fast half to prove that she has the speed too. So she entered Houston, and I mean, I know the hope was to run really fast, and the wheels kind of came off for her a little bit, which is funny to say because she still ran 66:07. So, like, disclaimer, she's still way faster than I ever was. But I think for Helen Obiri, that's outside of what we would expect for her. So, what did that race look like for you when you were watching it? Because she was pressing in the beginning, right?
Yeah, she was always the aggressor, and it was like I think it was set up to be this is the Obiri show. It's going to be her versus the clock. How fast can she go, and will she impress? Right, like same thing we said, same thing we basically told their team on our podcast, and then they took our advice and signed her up for the
Yeah,
race.
yeah.
What happened for sure? The woman who won, Kebede, I believe,
Mhm.
was a late ad. Like, so we're sitting talking about the field right before the race, and John, the coach from Rice, was like, "Oh, did you get the ad list?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Yeah, it came in last night." I'm like, Can I see who's on it?"
Can I have a copy?
And he's like, "Yeah, she might factor. She's a 67-minute woman and ran 2:18, I think, or 2:16. I don't even know. It's crazy fast." And I'm like, "Yeah, this is probably a name to know." And just kind of literally like dropped into the race, came out of nowhere, and looked phenomenal. But she looked really comfortable, and it's always hard to tell with Obiri because she pumps her arm so hard, and she's always kind of doing the like nose sniff, and you're like, she's just like suffering right now. Um, but that's just how she looks, even when she's totally comfortable. And so it's hard to get
Right.
that read. But behind her, Kibeti always looked, she looked relaxed, and she was in a nice spot. So I think, I don't know if the element of surprise, like, who is this woman? I wasn't supposed to have competition, and now I'm doing the work, kind of mentally goofed with her. But she went to the front, and it was like, I'm out here to run fast. I'm out here to win. I'm supposed to be here. Oh shit, I have company. That was sort of like the impression I got.
When now do you think like she ran 66:07, which again is not bad, but it's not on par with what she probably wanted to run, or what, her potential teammates could run in a half. Do you think that hurts her in the selection process? I mean, like for me, I'm like, everybody has an off day. Like you can't be perfect all the time. If your off day 66:07 and then you come back and have a strong Boston, I feel like, like nobody's on it all the time. So for me, I'm like, if I'm a selection committee member, I'm thinking, well, I mean, that just means that she's taking risks in training and that she's working hard. But the standard in Kenya is so high that I'm like, is that like now that's a notch? Like, well, she still hasn't proven she can run fast. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, if I'm on the selection committee, it's not even a question. She's on my team. She's a winner.
Right.
What she does is win, right? Like, I don't care where she's running, she wins. She beats the best fields that are put together, some of the all time great fields. I mean, she's beating people who are running very fast. So, like, what is it, transitive property? Like, okay, I'm better than her, so I'm this
Right.
fast. Like, I would use that, and she's on my team. But obviously, I don't know what the Kenyan selection committee is thinking. I think that they just put so much value on time.
Hmm.
And I also think that because of that, they very often pick the wrong team. And they leave some of their best competitors, their best athletes at home, and then don't fare that well when it comes to championship time. So, um, yeah, I think she probably needed to go faster. I think it's good that she didn't lose to another Kenyan. Maybe there's some
Right.
value there. Um, but I don't know, like, is Boston, what does it do that she hasn't already done? If she wins again, it's like, yeah, she's already proven she's a winner. but it was still only 2:21 because it's Boston and it was tactical for,
Right.
17 miles. Like, so I don't know. I think that's a hard spot to be in. I just don't know why they wouldn't pick her, but I'm also not looking at the full list. So, and who knows what will
Right.
happen in London? Like, if you get, three women going to 12, which could happen,
It could
then
happen.
it's a whole different scenario. And they go 1, 2, 3. Well, they're all competitors and they could work together. We watched it, and
Right.
there's a lot of moving parts on that one.
Well, there were other really fast people in there. We saw a new American record in the half marathon by a debut, which was pretty cool to see. Wayne Kaladi just you had eyes on her during the race. Like, did you know she was on it the whole time?
I did not. I mean, we not like the one thing I will say, the feeds there, like the actual, stuff we're watching is not, you just get the leaders. So it's like
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
looking at the same leaderboard you guys are getting, and I'm like sort of looking at it because I'm also watching three other races.
right.
Um, So I was keeping an eye on it. I knew it was probably going to happen like pretty late. And then we also had some of the Rice athletes go out on course, and they are in a WhatsApp. And so they're giving us like spotters, like giving us,
Oh,
updates
that's
and stuff,
cool.
which is really cool. They like get into it. Last year, one of the kids was like, Kip2 doesn't have his gloves on. He always wear gloves. Like, this is something's different today. I was like, what a great thing to notice. So they're like really dialed in. And they were giving us updates like, hey, she's about here. She's racing Bouze Dureba, I believe it was. And I started keeping a closer eye on that over the last 4 or 5 miles. I mean, one thing that broadcast I would love to see more of, it's just such a hard thing to do, is getting more women's coverage. Like,
Mhm.
it's a mixed race field. Like, the women are running with the men. Even when you get the shot, like Kaladi's behind three men because it's better for her running, terrible for TV.
Right.
But it's better for her to have a chance at breaking the American record. And so it's cool that we got the shot at the end and we're able to just hit on it briefly. And then she gave a great interview, which was really fun.
Yeah. So she said she's not running the trials, but let's just say it was you. Let's just say you went out there. What did she run? She ran 66:27. She looks pretty good doing it. You're not gonna have to run that fast to make the team. Obviously, you have to do it twice as far. If you're her, she's been a couple, like, very close to making teams. She's been fourth, I think, a couple times at the US Outdoor Championships, just barely making those world championship teams. I mean, would you consider it just going? I mean, like, I know that then it's your debut, and then you're sort of, people could argue then you're risking a big appearance fee down the line. But I got to tell you what I think. I'm kind of like, the women's race is so unknown at this Olympic trials coming up, that I'm kind of like, just go run halfway and see how you're feeling. And if you're not feeling
Yeah.
it, just drop out. It's no big deal. But I mean, I know that that's so much bigger than that. But what do you think on that? Like, if she was my athlete, I'd be like, you have nothing to lose and
Yeah,
everything to
girl.
gain. And
Yeah.
you should just go run, and whenever, if at any point it's obviously you're not going to make the team, just drop out.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that's holding her back is the entries are officially closed, which is unfortunate because I would love to see this scenario. I want to see her just do a petition or something and get herself in. But it's like a Seidel thing, right? Like, she
Yeah.
ran the half and was like, well, I'll debut at the trials. What's the worst that could happen? I think Wayne is, I mean, I don't know her age. She's obviously very young. She's a road monster. Like, she gets on the roads and just smashes. Um, I think that she's got such a big future in front of her that one thing that might benefit her is patience. Like, just use the leg speed while you have it. Like, figure out the track. Like, why can't I get this done on the track? So spend like a little more time. Try to get on that 10K team. Try to figure that out. How to get that season together and get that speed as long as you can. And then when she moves up, like, it's not going to be like, let's surprise people. It's going to be like, how do I podium in my first one? So she also has the benefit of training with Sharon Lucchetti,
Hmm.
and that's someone who went into her debut and got it done on the first one New York TCS New York City Marathon, and so like watching that and seeing that and getting that experience, I think she could step right into a major and knock it out of the park, which would be really cool too. But yeah, I totally agree in that the women's race is so wide open.
It really is.
I just don't think that people are gonna. I think you might get one of the three right in your picks, right?
I agree. I just think that championship style racing is so different, and it's not a marathon that people have run a bunch of times before, so they know it really well. And the pressure factor is really different at Olympic trials than anywhere else. And so I think it, if you look on paper, it could look really obvious, but I think it's so much more complicated than that. And so I don't know, Wayne, if you're listening to this, like maybe petition, it's only 2.5 weeks away. I mean, like, it's not like it's going to hurt your track
Yeah.
training, and just, drop out if it doesn't go well. Okay. She's not going to do that, but I thought that'd be fun. Okay. So I thought of the races of the day, the women's half was really exciting to me, just seeing the times. Edna Kippelgott ran a PR for the first time in 10 years at 44.
So you're saying there's a chance. There's a lot of
That's your
chances.
girl. That's the person you need to remember at all times. Edna Kippelgott ran
Right.
67:52. It's crazy.
Does that inspire you to make a comeback?
Yeah,
Come
well,
on, man.
I will say, on Friday I did get my knee drained and injected, and then today I'm getting Botox in my other leg, and everything takes about 3 weeks to kick in. So by trials, I should be ready.
I was trying to laugh, but I was also coughing at the mute button, so I wasn't leaving you hanging. I feel like you should be ready, Kara. I was going to
The
be your
timing
champ.
is actually perfect for February 3rd. I don't know. I'll see if I can petition in. No, I
All right.
mean, like, it's crazy. I'm only 1 year older than her, but I feel like I'm 20 some years older than her. But I used to feel like she was older than me because she had been marathoning for a while
Yeah.
before I started marathoning. And then our careers overlapped a little bit. And then I was done, and she keeps going. So it's wild. Like, I went from like thinking she was older than me, to thinking we were the same age, to now I'm like, how am I 20 years older than her? But we're
You
just a
know
year
what?
apart.
I think that race, like we always hear, Father Time is undefeated, right? That's an L for Father Time. You get
It really is.
all of human history, and then Edna has a one. Sorry, you got one loss, Father Time.
It's
Just
so
deal with
true.
it. Own that.
Yeah. All right. Well, a couple other notables that I thought were cool was McKenna Myler and Nell Rojas with PRs in the half marathon, running 60 in the 68-minute range, which is really good. So I don't know if anything else stood out to you, but those are some quick
Eric,
times, and
Erica
that's got to
Kemp.
feel good.
Erica Kemp was 109.10.
Oh yeah.
That's a
Yep.
massive PR for her. That was really great. Yeah, Nell Rojas coming back after injury. I mean,
Yeah.
she was supposed to be in Chicago, dinged up. So she's obviously looks like a contender. And McKenna Myler, like everyone just sleeps on her, but every time she lines up, she's really good.
I know. I
So,
was like, dang, I need to actually do a little bit more research into her, because I think, I
mm,
mean, again, this race is just the women's race at the trials. Same with the men's. It's just so open. And this race really reminded me that, yeah, there's no guarantees always. I mean, always, but really, I think with this field, we've talked about how deep it is, but I think in our minds, we still saw it playing out a certain way. And as it's getting closer, I'm like, no, we have no idea how this is going to play out.
you're thinking about the broadcast, right? You're like,
Oh,
who am
totally.
I spending my attention? Like,
Yeah,
what?
I'm like, I only
There's so
have
many
so many.
stories.
Yeah, we only have so many stories to tell, but it's like, I don't know how I'm going to pick. There's just too many things. So I need to
We
have
have
my little spice on everyone so I can throw something in, because there's so many different ways the race could go down. And yeah, that's another thing, because I'm on the broadcast. People are like, what do you think's going to happen? And I do think there are things I think that might happen. There are people I think that might take it and say, I'm not going to wait till the end. And then I think there's certain people who are used to following, so they'll go with those people. But I think it's not like a normal race when you have your rabbit and your pacer, or the comfort of that. And I think that creates an opportunity later on in the race for people to really come through and quote unquote shock. So I have what I kind of think is going to happen, but it depends on someone specifically that I'm thinking of taking the lead and really taking the reins of the race. And who knows if they'll do that or not.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
I mean, I'll tell you later. I'm not going to say it on here.
Leave this plug way.
Okay. What about the women's marathon? It was good. I screenshotted the times.
It
Um,
was good.
Tell us about it. Tell us a little bit about how it unfolded.
That's a race that we just don't get to see much of. Like we're so focused on the half for the first hour, and then you don't really get coverage of the women because they're still trying to find them out there. But then it was a group of three women behind Callum Neff, the pacer. He
Oh,
paced Kira D'Amato in her record run. He has a group called Hard Loop. They have a logo that is a fist like this, pow, and it just
oh
says
yeah.
Hard Loop like that. So you should watch on YouTube because you'll see what I'm doing. And he gave me a shirt once that said Hard Loop because I was like, oh, that's a cool shirt. And he was like, you want one? And he took his shirt off and gave it to me off his back.
That's cool.
I'm just kidding. He didn't do that. He just gave me a fresh one. So
I'm
he
like,
can
that's
sell him
so
that spirit.
cool. Gross,
Really,
but
it's
cool.
kind of gross. Would you take a shirt off someone's back?
I have, Des. I have. So
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, I guess if that's such a nice gesture, I probably would too. But he gave me a fresh one, which I also thought was a
which is
nice
even
gesture.
nicer.
Yeah. So back to the women. Enough about the men. Callum Neff, great dude, but he was in service of this great women's race. There was two women debuting who were just fantastic half marathoners, and this tells you everything you need to know about how much I prepare for these and then how quickly I forget it. It was just like three women. Vicode, I don't remember her last name, and then the woman who won was she had two last names on her bio. One was Choda, and then the other one was when we were actually calling her.
Tusa,
Who won?
maybe. I'm
Tusa.
looking at the
Yeah,
results. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So Tusa was the only one with like experience. She had won a couple races. She had finished runner up the last couple years, like in two races last year. And she's a 223 woman, and they were out under 219 pace. So with two people debuting, I guess now it's like it wouldn't be crazy for two women to debut under 220.
Right.
But a couple years ago, I would have been like, oh, they're toast. Call the
Yeah, but I
ambulance.
think our
Pick me
mindset
up
still
too.
like the default is pre. So you and I are like, wow, that's insane. Because that is insane. But yeah.
So, yeah, I'm like, get those stretchers ready. They're dying.
Medical. Medical.
You're gonna peel them all like scraper, like the in a hot brick oven pizza. Throw
Yeah.
them in the ambulance. But they were
Well,
fine
there's
and they ran great as
yeah,
well.
2 women under 220. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah,
There was a
debuting
little sad story in there for me with Natasha Wodak of
Wodak.
Canada. She's run well under the standard. I can't remember what happened at London this year. Maybe she got sick or something, and then she ran at World Champs, and it was so hot in Budapest, like
Mm,
crazy hot. So she didn't get it there, and she missed the standard and doesn't get named to Team Canada, and that was a little crushing to me. And again, it just reminded me in the marathon, there's all these stories within the story.
yeah.
Like, yeah, we're watching this incredible race up front with these two women gutting it out sub 220, but then like we're also watching for people who need to hit certain marks and times. And so
Yeah.
anyway, shout out to her. That
The
was a tough one to see.
discrepancy between the front and that standard was so big that it wasn't like you weren't even able to like close the gap on that and be like, and right behind you could
Right.
sort of see or like in this next pack. Advantage to the men on that one. But yeah,
Yeah.
there was a few women chasing. I think there was a couple German women as well. Um, I didn't even look past the top three. I took a
Yeah.
nap.
Yeah. Well, that's what's tough. That is what's tough is when you're calling marathons like that, especially when there's a half too. Like literally as soon as one race is over, I have no idea what happened because now I'm focusing on something
Oh,
else.
in the
Yeah.
notes, yeah.
And like it's not even 24 hours. And for you right now, but I'm not making fun of you because people will be like, well, who got fourth? I'm like, I
Just
don't
don't.
know.
Yeah,
Did someone get
I
third? I don't even
didn't
remember
see
who got third.
it. Yeah. I didn't see it. If I didn't have to talk about it, it's out
Right.
of my.
You can't because you're just trying to focus on what you're seeing. So okay, let's switch to the men.
All right,
Let's go. Let's
bingo.
start with the half.
Okay. What'd
That
you
was
think? What did
I
you
mean,
think? Let's start with you. I'm gonna flip this. How are
okay.
you feeling about the halves, the
Well, so
winners, the
it's
races,
okay,
and then
okay.
we'll go into
It's
the Americans?
okay. Well,
Maybe
you
some
remember
warm up.
I've called a race with Jamal Yammer before. I believe Boston a couple times he's been in when I've called that, and he seems to be he looks really young to me. I don't know why, but he seems to be a very mature racer. And so I thought he ran really well. And I mean, like whenever you're kicking at the end of a half or a marathon, I'm always just like, wow. I mean, That sucks. I mean, you've been there, right? You were kicking trying to win Boston, and it's like it feels like a little bit of a cruel fate. But so that came down to a kick that men's half, which is exciting for fans. But I always think for them, they must be like, "Are you kidding me?"
Dang it. Well, the half is like a full sprint. Like,
Yes.
you know what I mean? The half is a sprint. For me, this is just me, and anyone who's running the marathon, like the half is like running the 5K, but for forever. So I
Yes.
don't know, like it's not even like a kick at the end. It's just like more of the same.
Well, it's kind of funny actually. Like, I don't know how, like, maybe it's just because I'm so removed from racing myself. But even watching Kaladi come in, I was like, why is she running so fast? Like,
Yeah,
how
you're
is
doing
she doing that for 13.1 miles?
like a sprint. It's like a 10K now.
It's crazy.
Half is the new 10K. Marathon
It's
is the
crazy.
new 25K. And
Honestly, for me, what was more interesting in this race was the American men. And again, it's hard to know what it means. It's 3 weeks out. Some people are training through it. It's their last opportunity to train through something. But there were just a couple performances that were, for me, just like really stood out. I really need to learn how to say this name, but maybe you know how to say it better because you just called the race yesterday. But
I should, but
Muleba Simbasa, is it Simbasa or
that's
Simbasa?
what we were saying,
Okay.
Simbasa.
Okay. So he ran,
Someone will correct us if we're wrong.
I know, and I have to learn by February 3rd. Anyway, but 60 minutes 45 seconds. I mean, that's a legit time, and even if you taper it a little bit for it, there's no way you could taper a ton because the long taper, if you're doing a long taper, it starts now actually. So you can't
Mhm.
taper anything significant for this race. Sure, maybe you could take a couple down days because you want to get one last big, hard, sharp effort in. But I mean, running 60 minutes and 45 seconds is that's really good. Like I'm trying to think of like in the past who we've had running a marathon like or running a half like that close to the marathon. So it either says like he's really fit and in a new place to me, or
Mhm.
he's like ready too soon. I mean, like for me, it's a good sign. It could mean that he rested a little too much. It could mean that he's just too sharp. I doubt it. I mean, when you're training for a marathon, your half usually suffers a little bit in sharpness. But then
Yeah.
Diego Estrada also ran 60 minutes 49 seconds. And I was like, I don't want to be like an asshole here, but I haven't heard his name in so long and I was like, "What? Good for him."
Is he entered?
In the trials?
Yeah.
I don't even know. It was more just like seeing his name and running something so
Yeah.
solid. I was like, "Oh, what a
That is
great,
cool.
great effort."
Yeah, it was awesome seeing him at the front because he's had a phenomenal race in Houston before. Like you get that day and, um, you know, just impressed, and then it's like try to live up to it again, and maybe have some things there and something it's not. And you're right, he's kind of disappeared for a bit. So I think when you know how to run a course and you're confident and the training's going well, like he just looked like he was like, okay, I'm gonna go capture that magic again. I've done it in Houston before. I know it's possible here. Like he just was an aggressor all day, which is cool.
Yeah, I was just like really pumped to see his name back out there. It's our sport is so unforgiving, and I remember when he came out of college and there was so much hype and so much talk about him, and I just think he struggled the last few years. And I honestly I feel bad. I kind of forgot about him. I was like, oh, he
Right.
must have moved on. He's like a normal person now. And to see him run under 61 minutes, I was like, dang, that's exciting. Like, what does that mean? Like, I don't actually even know him, but I just want to know what does that mean? What are your
What are your
what are the
plans?
hopes now? Yeah, like what's next? What's next? So anyway, that was cool to see. And then obviously, I think a lot of us were looking to see what Galen Rupp would do. There was some talk if he ran a certain time, he would potentially open up another Team USA spot. Um, he didn't run negative splits. He ran positive splits, which tells me a little bit the race fell apart from where he was hoping to be. He ran 62:37. Again, it's really hard to know what this means, you know? I mean, he looked so good just a few months ago in Chicago, so I can never write I would never write him off, right? He's going for his fifth Olympic team. He's won 2 Olympic medals, but I don't think this was the performance that he was hoping to get 3 weeks out.
I would agree. I think I would say probably like the last 4 miles maybe. I didn't look at the splits, but I'm guessing like I want to know where the wind was. And then,
Mhm.
also like I think there was chatter about the selection spot, but I don't know that that came from him.
No,
You
I
know,
don't
like
think it did.
like
No.
I don't I'm pretty sure that wasn't his goal. I think it was like go out there, run hard, get a good effort in. The other thing
Mhm.
is like the for all of these athletes, like the performance is what it is. It's there's training effect to it. Like this is going to help them training for the trials. This is going to improve their fitness. But it's also like, what's the recovery factor? And maybe you get in those late miles, like it's windy, got a lot out of this day. I just need to get home in one piece and get ready to like start the recovery process. Like that's what we need to do now. I don't know. Like he looked really strained in the late stages. Like they showed him finishing up and it looked like a full gas effort. Like I went out hard and I'm spent. So the recovery is going to be the question for him.
But
Um,
sometimes even that isn't necessarily a negative. It's
yeah,
like you went to the well one last time when it was safe to go to the well, right? Like you don't wanna go to the well in the next 2 weeks because you're getting you're like the big thing you're
right.
getting ready for is the next time you wanna go to the well. But this actually made me think about how, because one of my friends texted me and she was like, "How come not very many people are racing?" And I was like, "Well, some people don't wanna put their cards on the table." And they
Yeah,
don't want people to know where they're at. Some people are dinged up. Other people are using it as a tempo effort. Other people are using it as like a big hard effort. So it's there is no set standard of why people decide to race in the build up to a marathon. And then even when they do, what the effort means. So I thought this was just kind of an interesting thing to talk about because obviously we don't, you didn't race in the build up to the trials, right? So what, besides the fact that you're working a million jobs, what's your reasoning for not towing the line between Chicago and the trial?
oh gosh. Yeah, I guess it never was on my schedule because it was such a quick turnaround from Chicago. And it was like, all right, we just got to maximize training days. And so, like, you can go to a race and then if you don't have your head on right, it can just mess things up. Like, if you run really well, great, you're confident, but then you're like, do I need to taper? Can I recover? And like, you overthink it that way. And then the other side is you run poorly. You're like, I'm not fit. I should have stayed home. Like, I like tapered down for this a little bit. I've lost those days. So, if you're an overthinker, like it just sets you up for that. I don't think I'm an overthinker anyways. Like just it is what it is. But I just prefer to like keep my head down and like stay in the training rhythm and get everything I can out of those days. Um, I would have rather had race this weekend because then I wouldn't have had such travel woes. And I would have gotten the hard effort in because I was supposed to do 20 miles during that travel nonsense. And so now I'm screwed, but we'll figure it out. Anyhow, so yeah, I mean, and the other, like I said this on the broadcast, where like if you're a competitor and you're watching and someone cracks a good one, you're like, oh man, like the guy's as fit as he's ever been. You can stress out about it, or you like a lot of people explain it away, like, ah, he's just fit for a half. Like I look at
Mhm.
that day, Kenna Myler, Simbasa, Rory Linkletter, like those guys all cracked really good half marathons. So it's like, is Ryan Hall a great half marathon coach? Because they're all Ryan Hall athletes. Is he a
Mm.
great half marathon coach? Or are they all going to go run awesome marathons? Like we're going to find out. And I think he's a great marathon coach as well. But what a great half marathon performance from everyone on his team.
Yeah.
The flip side is if people run poorly, we can look at Rupp and be like, oh, he's not ready. Count him out. He's washed up, blah, blah, blah. And so it doesn't matter how they perform. Like it's going to be explained away by their competitors in a way that, gives the competitor like the feeling that they're more prepared.
Yeah. I think every athlete's different. Like we've seen Rupp do this. He likes to race 3 or 4 weeks out. Um, I think, yeah, that's why I think people were thinking he'd go a little quicker. The only thing I heard him say was someone asked him about the American record, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm here to get in like a good hard effort, but not necessarily like trying to break 60 minutes." I mean, I liked to race, but it was different. I had 3 different marathon coaches. So with my first coach, which would be similar to the pattern that Galen likes, we'd really try to take like a crack 3 to 4 weeks out. Um, and then when I ran for Jerry, we would run maybe 5 weeks out, but it would literally be just, this is the pace that I think I'm ready to run the marathon. So you had to have a lot of confidence in saying, like, I
Yeah.
remember Shalane and I, we went to this race and we were going to run 73 minutes on the dot. And I didn't even see Shalane after the first mile. She ran 69 something and I ran 70 minutes and 3 seconds, and it's just like, if you're going to do it to run the time, then you have to be like I had to be able to go, it's okay. I
Right.
had this workout
You
and I
can
saw it
be
through, where
right.
Shalane got there and she was like, no, I actually just want to run hard, which is fine. Right. And so it
Yeah.
was just two different mindsets. And then with my third coach, Mark and Heather, I like to run a half a couple times, but I wanted it to be a bit out. So I think
Yeah.
for the 2016 trials, they were also in February, right? Yeah. So I think I ran a half in November and December, but then it was like, kind of like, okay, let's just now be quiet and not give anybody any more information and just like get the work done without talking to anybody and letting anybody see anything. So it's funny, with the three different coaches, it's like three totally different strategies. Yeah.
Do you think 3 weeks out? Because usually you're seeing people a month to five
Yeah.
weeks out. Like, do you think
Yeah.
3 weeks is close? And do you think that is maybe some of the decision making in like folks who didn't run quite as well? Or maybe
Yeah.
that's like why people ran so well.
3 weeks out is a little close now that, really, I would be 4 or 5 weeks out when I was running with my first coach, which is the pattern that Galen's typically on. I think it might have just been the timing of the race. Like, it's a good, well
Right.
organized race.
61, right?
Yeah. It's like, it's going to be a quick course, there's going to be good competition. And so, again, it complicates what are we seeing in the results, because are people like, well, it's just good. It's not necessarily the perfect timing, but it's the only real great opportunity and it's a
Yeah.
little close. So I'm not going to rest as much for it. Or this is the beginning of my taper. Like, we don't know.
Yeah.
So,
There's a
I
lot of
mean,
questions there, right?
yeah,
Because you have to recover from this. If you go all in, like, okay, so you have to take a week, and then what? You're 2 weeks out. You are you going to do another big out? You got to taper. So you
right.
just accepted it pretty, yeah.
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 Yeah, I know. It's a lot of thinking, and when you're in the position, not necessarily your position, because you're just like a little older and wiser and you have like a good hold on like what you want to do, but it is a mind game, whether you raced or not. And what does it mean? And everyone's thinking, and everybody saw what everybody ran yesterday. Everybody is well aware.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's a calculated risk to run and it's a calculated risk to not run as well. So
Fun. I love it.
okay. Well, what about that men's marathon? Should we quick give them some props? Because that was pretty
You
good.
probably should. It was pretty good. A lot of people getting Olympic standards. Well, it was
Mhm.
four. It's 4 or 5.
Yeah. Course record there, 2:06:39.
Mm-hmm.
I
Albie
mean,
ran really smart. He ran a really smart race. You didn't see him in the mix until like you know past 20, I think. I don't remember the exact mark, but he was very patient. The guys up front were just getting after it. Um, yeah, and then I thought Tiernan was great. I think
yeah.
that's a name that's like all right, what a great run from him. He's a marathoner now. He's got that standard. But like you look at that bigger picture with Alistair and Amy's group, the Puma team, and I always make it about the Americans because I'm an American. That's just what we do. But like trials implications, like okay, like you had the Puma women run fantastic in Chicago. Sarah
Mhm.
Vaughan ran really great. I think it was Rose Harvey. I think
Yep.
they had one other woman on their team that just ran a great marathon. So they're starting to put it together. More success with Tiernan, and then you have I think Natasha Rogers is a name that's not being mentioned enough. She'll debut at the trials, and like she's like a sleeper pick for me because she's just so good. She's clearly with a group that understands it. She gets all the learnings that from the mistakes that have come prior, and they're tweaking and they're fixing it. So she doesn't have to go through those, and she gets the benefit of the experience without having to have the negative side of it. And she's just tough as hell. Like
Mhm.
she's such a tough runner. So I think I could see her running late in the women's race. Yeah, and I made it about American women again. So sorry, I
Well, that's
digress.
what we spoiler alert, that's what we know and love best. Yes, we talk about it all and we are a male friendly podcast, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, we're both women and we ran the marathon and you still run it. And that's kind of like our favorite thing. Yeah. But
Yeah,
whatever.
that's
Yeah. I
fair.
mean, I do think there are so many opportunities late in this trials for women like Natasha Rogers. We haven't talked about Jenny Simpson. I keep going back to Gabby Rooker, who's never trained full time. She's taken a break from her work just to train for this. There's so many names like that um, it's the closer we get, the more I'm like, this race is going to be insane. It's just going to be insane.
I will plug, and this might help you. You probably already know this. It might help you study, but bios, athlete bios are going up at Orlando2024trials.com. And I've been told, I was asked to plug this, not by the organization, but by the friend who wrote the bios. She worked very hard on them. But there's more space on these bios for athletes to write kind of their own story and tell a little bit more personal information. And so there's a lot of depth to them. And I think that they're kind of adding more each day. And the athlete had to fill it out for it to go up. So some of them, I think if it's really generic, the athlete didn't fill it out and the organization did it. But the really in-depth stories on there are pretty cool. I've kind of thumbed through a few of them. You're like, oh, Jess Ton, this story was going to make me cry. Like she was so happy to see her bio up on the page. And then you read her story about having to miss a few opportunities, injuries. Like she hasn't been at a trials and she's been qualified multiple times. They just go on and on. So spend some time on that, read those, learn about the competitors. If you're not getting enough here, you can go to the website, but both of them are probably listen to the pod and then go to the website.
Cool. Okay, well, there was something else I wanted to bring up just in the context of training for a big race, specifically the trials is what I'm thinking about, but it's applicable to anything you're training for, which is that I'm in Boulder right now and like in a lot of places in the country, it's -20. We're under this wind chill warning. We've been under it for 90 hours. It continues. Started Friday at midnight, goes till noon tomorrow. It's snowing pretty hard. Um and I think a lot of the Midwest and mountain towns are being hammered right now. And so there's a lot of athletes in mountain towns and in the Midwest that are going to be at the trials. And it got me thinking of like, oh, I got so lucky in 2016. Our weather was so mild and then it snowed like crazy after the trials. But when the weather's like this and someone doesn't have the ability to fly to a drier place or a warmer place, what are your thoughts on like your training at this point? Like, let's say it's this exact situation this past weekend and leading into this week where it is cold. I mean, dangerously cold, honestly. And the conditions are really bad out. And what do you think your advice is, or what would you do as an athlete when you're facing conditions like this, when you're in that last crucial time before a big race that matters a lot to you?
It's so hard. I mean, obviously conversations with your coach, because every coach is going to have a different philosophy. And that's kind of been I'm on the phone with my coach pretty often. Like, are we going to shift it or should I just go out and try to get time on feet? So there's a lot of different things you can get out of it. And maybe it's treadmill, like that's been an option too, which I really hate the treadmill, but that's something that's come up a few times. So it's like, what do you want out of the day? Is it just time on feet, or do you need to actually hit paces and then you got to adjust that way? Or do you go and run the pace, but like just not the pace, but the effort rather, right? Like don't look at your watch too far, like type stuff. But I think all of that, if I was summing up what we're trying to accomplish, it's like hard work is hard work. Like
Mhm.
if you don't see the times on your watch, if you went and put in a hard effort and like effort is everything and hard work is hard work and it's going to help you. I think sometimes I've been thinking about this a lot with the trials. Like it's interesting to watch a lot of these like young contenders get after it, and I love innovation and creativity, but also like how like so many people try to do that little extra thing because it's the
Yes.
trials, right? Like I'm going to add 15 more miles, or I'm going to try and run 5 seconds faster than ever before per mile, or like everyone's doing like a little bit more because they just like it's so meaningful. And like the favorites, like they just have to do exactly what they know how to do. And they don't need to get any better, but they can't be any worse. So like if you're a favorite, all you have to do is be perfect.
Mhm.
which is crazy, right? Like, that's a
Yeah.
crazy thing to ask. Like, all I gotta do is be perfect. But, like, there's no room for error, and, like, just keep doing exactly what you can do, and that's what most people need to do in general because, like, all those people looking for the little edge are probably gonna overdo it, and, like,
Yep.
some people get to the line and they just won't be healthy, or they'll be super fatigued from all the extra stuff, and, like, don't overcomplicate it. It's right foot, left foot, repeat. Hard work is hard work. Like, just keep it really, really simple because at the end of the day, it's still 26.2 miles, and you're going to run your best if you're prepared and you're healthy. But if you go that couple miles extra and you're hurt, then it's all gone. So just, it's like try and be perfect, but don't overthink what perfect is, which is
I
terrible.
totally agree. I totally agree. Like, I'm looking outside and there's a lot of people in Boulder, a lot of people in Flagstaff preparing, and I think it's better to err on the side of caution and just say, "Hey, I have a body of work before this." Like, going out and trying to hit a certain pace on a day like today, it's a risk, and it's not, to me, if I was your coach, I'd say it is not worth the risk to go out there if you were to slip or if you were to damage your lungs from breathing because it's cold. Like, it's just not worth it. Either shift it to the treadmill or shift a whole different workout to an indoor facility, or just know that you've put in the work and let's maintain it at this point. And maybe that's a blessing in disguise sometimes, because exactly what you're describing is like, because it's the Olympic trials, everyone feels like everything has to be not even perfect, slightly better, like the best I've ever done. And that's where the mistakes are made and where that, like, you just go over that edge. So I've just been thinking about it a lot the last couple of days because I'm like, man, if I was training for the trials, I'd probably be freaking out right now. But I honestly think it could be a blessing in disguise, because if you respect the weather and you respect the fact that it's not worth taking a risk to go and try to run a certain pace in these conditions, it actually prevents you in a weird way from going over the edge at the time. I mean, this is the time where I feel like a lot of the mistakes happen. It's like 4, 3,
Yeah.
2 weeks out, right? 2 weeks out, everyone's starting to taper, but it's like that 2 to 4 weeks out where people are like trying to sneak in that one more thing and trying to push out that, you know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
where people get tweaked or they just get tired. I mean, I totally did that in 2012. It was like we just got greedy. It was like, oh, let's hammer one more huge session. And then it was like we left our Olympics out on the roads in Europe. So in a weird way, if I was an athlete, I'd be trying to reframe this as like a blessing in disguise. I'm not going to dig a grave. I'm going to, fresher legs are better than an injury or doing too much.
I so needed to hear that right now, like legit, because that was my last week where I had a 20 miler in a big tempo scheduled, and it was just like the first week of bad weather, and we kept pushing it, and we kept pushing it, and we kept pushing it, and then it was like I changed all my flights to be able to do it down in Houston, and then I got delayed, and my coach was like, "No, you're just going to do it next week. Like, it's fine. It's
It's
just run
fine.
mileage. It's fine." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, I know, but I want to do it."
You know, it's
Yeah,
tough. It's tough mentally, but you have all that work in your body and all the things you've done, and especially an athlete like you who's been doing it for so long. I mean, look, it's easier on this side to say it.
for sure.
It's easier for me at home that has no plans of running a marathon ever to be like, "Nah, don't that's crazy. Don't do that." It's much easier on this side, but that's part of being an athlete, is being able to say like, "Okay, it's not worth it."
Perspective and maturity, though, like, I think it goes a long way, and it's like, well, I mean, and also like banked miles, right? When you have a
Yeah,
bunch in your legs, it's like, wow, this isn't going to make or break me. It's
right.
fine. When you're
That's one of
younger,
my
I think that, yeah,
Yeah. No, go ahead when you're younger.
yeah, I mean, I think when you're younger, like, that those decisions are much tougher, and but you also recover quicker and you have more opportunities, so it's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
that's
keep
one of my favorite things. I did a commercial shoot with Meb. This would have been back in 2014, and I'm like coming back from a sacral stress fracture. I haven't raced in a really long time. I'm hammering the workouts, all this stuff, and we do this commercial shoot together. And I'm super stressed out because I'm on my legs like all day. And then the next day I was supposed to do 10 by K before I fly back. I'm actually really frustrated with my sponsor. I'm like, you guys don't understand. I need to train. Or maybe it was 6 weeks out from New York. And then I'd like do this thing with Meb, and then he's like, I was like, aren't you stressed out? Like, this is such a long day. I mean, it was literally a 6 till 8 p.m. day. We're on our feet the whole day, and we're 6 weeks out. And he was like, we got 6 weeks.
Yeah,
And
right.
I was like, "We only have 6 weeks." And he was like, "We have 6 weeks," you know? But I think it was like what you're saying. It's like the wisdom of all the miles over all of the years and knowing your body. And, yeah, we couldn't have been any more different on that day. I was as stressed and as tightly wound as could be, and he was as chilled and like whatever.
I'm gonna get
But anyway,
started
okay.
next week.
Yeah, he's like, "I'll start next week. It's no big deal." Okay, we're getting here on time, but I do want to bring up one kind of funny topic that someone asked us about on Twitter. I don't know. Did you see
Oh, okay.
this?
I don't think
Okay.
so, but maybe I did.
Okay.
Fire away.
So someone asked me, "Hey, what do you and Des think about this?" And I don't even really know what my thoughts are, so we can talk through together. There's a Chinese marathoner named Uncle Chen. Okay? He's 52 years old and he smokes the entire time he runs the marathon. So he's run 3:28 smoking
Wow.
while running. This story is so bizarre to me. So anyway, he 2 years ago he ran 3:28 and then they put in these new rules cuz the Chinese were like this is not good. We don't want to promote smoking, especially not smoking when you're running. And he didn't run a marathon for a couple years and then he ran again on January 7th. He ran 3:33 at 52 years old, smoking heavily the whole time. And he was DQ'd after due to this new rule which is like uncivilized behavior such as defecating, smoking, or trampling on flower beds or green spaces that affect the race and safety of other people's. And so he was DQ'd. And so somebody asked me about this, and I
I
was like,
love
I
all
don't
this.
even know where to begin my thoughts on this. Like, if I was running, I don't want to be smelling cigarette smoke. I think I've been in situations like that in Europe where like they're lining me up and smoking, and it feels really like offensive in the moment. But there's also something about this that I'm kind of like, what a badass, which is like horrible. I'm not pro smoking, but there's something about it that I'm like weirdly intrigued by. So I don't know. Save me from myself here. What are
What's
your
the
thoughts
record?
on this?
What's the record, Kara? There's got to be a record.
I'm sure he has it. 3:28. I mean, that's like legit.
How many
Smoking the whole
cigs?
time?
Like cigs to miles. What's the like? Wait, we need like a ratio.
Oh, I have no idea. But what are
Yeah.
your thoughts here? What do you think?
Okay, I don't want him in my marathons. I think if they made a well for and also like I wouldn't equate smoking to defecating on somebody's
Right.
lawn. I also think those are different.
I do
Um
too.
like, I mean,
Just a
I
tiny
wouldn't
bit.
enjoy it, but it's not like you took a shit on me. Um it's like if people were throwing feces at you during then I don't know, whatever. Anyways, I just don't think that's the same in that policy. I don't want smokers. I think they should have a smoking marathon. They should
Yeah.
create an event. I no judgment at all. If this guy is a smoker and he's also a runner, you do you. It's like people who do beer miles. Not for me. Not. I don't. I like to separate my running from my beverages. But if that's a little different because it's such a short event. Like this guy's actually running. Like
I mean, he's
if he
running,
right,
right?
like he's
I mean, like,
running. I'm
let me
not
put it
gonna
in the pace
tell him.
calculator. Hold on. I need to know what this is now. You keep talking for a second.
Yeah, I just anybody who's lacing up and running, I give them credit for doing it. And I'm not gonna tell him that he has to put down his cigarette to enjoy the run. But I also think like someone should talk to him about how much better he could be without smoking.
You know, I saw a picture of him. He looks really fit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sure he's thin from all the smoking.
I'm all running.
Yeah, that too.
Okay, ready? Are you ready
What
for
pace
this?
calculator are you using? You just
I
use
don't want to
numbers?
advertise that actually.
Okay, okay.
Um,
Sorry.
so he's running 756 miles.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
good on him.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't want to be running next to someone who's smoking while I'm running hard at a marathon. Um,
He just
And the
needs his
person
own
who
lane.
reached out, I think they just wanted our take, but I didn't feel like an angry take. I just felt like, wow, that's fascinating that someone would
Yeah.
do that and could do that. So that was kind of my take.
I don't like I think that anybody who's running that's great. And I don't care how you do it unless you're,
Yeah.
you know, defecating on
Maybe
people's
there's
lawn.
a market there. Maybe he could market like I'm the marathoning cigarette guy. I guess he has a name. His nickname is he's also run ultra marathons, by the way. Okay, didn't write it down. Apparently he had some like nickname, like the smoking man or something. But maybe you should like create funny race events or just I
I
don't
wonder
know.
if there is a
Every
market for
doctor
that.
listening to this is hating us right now.
I don't know. Like, what's the alternative? He doesn't run, but he keeps smoking,
Right.
right? So this is good
Yeah.
for him. Good for him. You know. And if he's not going to give up the smoking, then do it with the running, but also consider giving up the smoking, even if it's your
Right.
thing. It's better for you.
It is better.
That's my PSA.
Okay. All right. Well, guess what we're going to do now? Okay. Everybody listen. This is a great sound. My current favorite flavor, root beer. Olipop top 5. Do you want to start or
Yeah.
do you want me to start?
Um,
Mm,
you
so
start because
good.
I'm gonna
How's there
make you.
fiber in this? It's
I know
so
it's crazy.
good. I
You
mean,
know
like
what?
I'm helping my gut right now.
It's also artificial sugar, like a little tiny bit, like stevia, I think. And I can taste stevia in anything, and I'm like, "Ugh,
Yeah.
can't drink it, won't eat it, ugh."
But
And I
you can't
don't
it
put
doesn't have
sugar in
that
it.
here. I
Yeah,
completely agree. That ruins it. I can't put it in coffee or anything like that, but I don't taste it in here. It doesn't give me that I
there's
just think
not.
it's so delicious. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Okay.
balance. They found the balance.
They really did.
Um, do you have a list this time? I
I
didn't write
mean,
anything this time.
I
You
wrote down
start.
a couple things.
Okay, good.
Um, one was just Houston in general, twofold. You back in the booth, and our editor Chris ran the
Yeah,
marathon. He has had a lot going on in his personal life, and he got sick 10 days out, but he finished and he got through it. And I was really like proud of him. And it was cool to see him out there. And it was cool to see you back in the booth. So
yeah.
Houston for me, but like on a personal level, you and Chris out there.
Yeah, congrats to Chris. That was awesome. Not I know we all finish and we're like, I would have done this different or that different, this one wrong. And then like, but it's still awesome to get to the finish. Like to put in the
Yes.
work to get the finish line, and then be like, oh, next time, And I think there'll be a next time for Chris. Pretty excited about that. So congrats to him. I agree with that one. That's a great one. I'm just buying time here. Um, I talked about this a little earlier, and this is my pet peeve that I'm gonna try to get better at. But I wanted to bump this again for the top five. But the Orlando 2024 trials.com webpage with the athlete bios, I really think it's cool that these stories are in there. Some of the pictures are fun. A lot of them are running. There's one gentleman who just put two photos of his dogs, which I thought was cool. I was like, you could probably be in it with your dogs so people can recognize you out there. But I noticed his picture; it stood out. In at 2020, I put a photo up of me holding a koala, and everyone else had running photos. And then someone was like, "You should have your sponsor on your shirt." And I was like, "Who cares? It's a koala."
Right. It's a
Um,
koala.
yeah,
Get
like
better than
how could
that.
you?
Good luck.
Yeah, we can talk about Brooks whenever, but you don't want
Yeah.
to see koalas. So,
I'm glad
those
that
are
you're shouting that out and I'm glad that you just gave me some information I didn't know earlier when you were talking about it because I went to it the day it opened up and I read all the bios, but I was like, oh, I wish there were more. And so I didn't know that they've been updating it and adding it. So that's actually selfishly amazing information. So I'm
yeah.
glad you're
There's some
bringing that
good
up.
stuff in there. Yes, Charlie Lawrence favorite book, Choosing to Run. There was no line for second favorite, but I'm sure it would have been yours.
It
And
would
I'm
have
sure
been
that
the longest race, of course.
depends on the day.
Okay. That's a good one. Okay, think of one more because I'll do the next one and the last one.
All
Okay.
right. Yep.
My other thing I'm gonna say is I used to train at Air Force getting ready for the Boston Marathon in 2013, and I have PTSD from getting my ass kicked there by Shalane Flanagan on a daily basis and just how high it is and dry it is and just being demolished day in and day out. And Colt ran up there yesterday in a little youth meet. It was only his fourth time running since December 9th. So it was a
Nice.
suffer fest for him, but he had fun. And my Ollie Pop, like one of my happy things is he's helping me break down that old PTSD. Like I want to be able to walk into the Air Force indoor facility and not feel anxiety. And he's
Absolutely.
helping me get there. So it's cool to be there in a capacity like that and to see him run hard. And yeah, it was cool to be up there and like actually be able to enjoy it because it is a beautiful facility up there.
Awesome. I love that. Number three, coming in at number three.
This is
These
number
are no,
4.
oh yeah, number four. I'm on my own planet. Okay, good. We're getting closer to the number five. These are no particular order, just things that are popping into our brain. But I'm gonna go number four, Wayne Kalati.
Oh, nice.
American record in her debut. That's awesome. She didn't get the time on the TV, so let's give her the time on the pod. We talked about it earlier. I do think that this record's just going to continue to get knocked down like year after year, probably in Houston. I guess it's been in Gold Coast now too, but it's a cool to see it get better. It's cool to see the gap close to the front, the all times list, and we've got some work to do. But I think that she's just showed she's another person in the long list of American distance runners who are doing great things right now. So much talk on the 2024 trials and who might make that team 2028. Lainey Kalati.
Oh, yeah.
You heard it here
I
first.
agree. Ink it in. Ink it in. Yeah, huge congrats to her, and it's super cool to see someone in a debut, I think, run that aggressively, like, to have enough confidence in their training and their ability and, like, to go out and say I mean, she had to make a decision before she even got to the starting line, like, that she was gonna go for the American record, right? So, I think that shows a lot of, like, gumption, and I think that's what we need. We need people who are like, "No, I'm ready to attack. I'm ready to be here." And so, good one. That's a good one. Yeah, congratulations to her. That's a good one. Okay, so I'm gonna do the last one. I haven't even told you I'm gonna do this, but it's not I'm not actually telling what's happening. So don't drop any hints.
Oh, okay.
My fifth Olipop top 5 or ours for this week is that something fun is happening and I have a fun announcement coming and I'm very, very, very excited. And I don't want to say anything about it except for that um, it'll be announced between this when this comes out in the trials. And selfishly, I'm super excited because I think it makes our lives intersect a little bit more. And that's all I'm going to say. But big news
What?
coming, and I'm super, super excited to tell everybody in the future. So cheers to that.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. A cliffhanger for number five.
That's right.
There, but it's not there, so you're gonna have to come back for
That's
more.
right.
I love that. Good job. Good job on
Yeah,
that one.
thanks.
I'm excited for that announcement as well. It's gonna be super fun. We'll crush some lollipops.
Well, we will definitely crush. Okay, so let's stop talking about it though. Okay. You have a couple weeks to go.
Yeah.
Keep training hard. We have a very special final trials episode planned, right? For the
I don't
pod.
know. Okay. I see what happened. We didn't get to it today.
Yeah, we're gonna have some special guests, and we are super excited about it. And no, it's not our competitors. Like it's something really fun and special. So tune back in 2 weeks because we're gonna have a very cool last episode before the trials. But it's gonna just keep hyping. We are all about the trials, team trials, and Des actually gets to run, and she's got Mickey on her shoulder, so she's in Orlando getting ready. And
Yay!
yay! Thanks for joining us, everybody. Woohoo!